Over the past 4 years, I have heard hundreds of senior speeches. I've heard many different topics from many different perspectives, but a surprising few have touched on the issue of feminism. Even more shocking to me is the reality that this speech, the one I will deliver today, is the only talk in recent memory delivered by a man on feminism. This is not to say that a masculine voice is required to lend legitimacy to any conversation on feminism, but rather to affirm that we are in this together, that what I have to share today is just as important to the men in this room as it is to the women. Perhaps the reason that women seem to be the only ones talking about feminism is that too many men see it as a threat to their masculinity. But if women are the only people talking about feminism, are they the only ones who care? I would like to believe that this is not true. I think most men know that women should be equal to men, but there is a significant difference between knowing how to talk about feminism for a grading class and treating women equally in life. I'm confident in saying that every man in this audience believes that women and men should be treated equally. So why are women the only ones talking about it? It's easy to say that women talk about feminism because it affects them, and that men don't because it isn't about men. But I disagree. Although feminism has many different meanings to many different people, I believe that feminism affects both genders in every aspect of our lives. Because to me, feminism isn't just about recognizing that women are equal to men. To me, feminism is about understanding that any representation of women as inferior to men is counterproductive, false, and a dangerous contributor to toxic notions of masculinity. By perceiving women as less than men, we create dangerous notions of masculinity. If a man does not fit into these prescribed notions of what it is to be a man, it can be extremely psychologically damaging, whether it is through emotional or physical bullying, or through a feeling that he does not fit in. These ideas of what is manly and what is not also lead to a dangerous use of language. Almost every middle school boy has been called gay or girly or changed his behavior to avoid being perceived as anything but a specific construct of masculinity. These labels are very serious as they propagate an idea that it is not okay to be gay or that being a girl is inherently bad. On the playground, in the classroom, we are taught to fight back tears, to be stoic, to not feel, all out of fear of being assigned a stigmatized label that has no reason for stigma. To put this into perspective, in America, the male suicide rate is approximately 4 times higher than that of females. Male suicide rates are elevated because men are taught that they should be strong, that weakness, that emotion, that asking for help is girly. Men experiencing suicidal thoughts are 30% less likely to receive mental health care than women, because to ask for help is to somehow display weakness, and to display weakness is to not be a man. The social pressure to be masculine is also manifested through sexual violence. 1 in 6 men report experiencing some form of sexual abuse by the age of 18, and 1 in 6 women report either an attempted or completed rape during their lifetimes. Both of these statistics are likely underestimates, as many victims are afraid of reporting sexual assault. Men are similarly afraid of the reaction that others will have to their being the victims of sexual assault. Now, I debated including what I'm about to say in this speech because of the aforementioned stigma associated with it. Although it is less prevalent and certainly less reported than male rape of women, men do experience sexual assault, even rape, at the hands of women. Now, I share this fact not to suggest that one experience of rape is more significant or more emotionally scarring than another, but merely to call out the reaction to and question the assumption that men cannot be raped. When we snicker and laugh at this reality, we are only reinforcing the very stereotypes that encourage men to stay quiet. Harking back to the toxic notions of masculinity I mentioned earlier, men commonly do not report sexual assault as they are afraid that either no one will believe them or they are afraid that they will lose their status as a man if anyone knows what happened to them. This is due to a deeply held belief that men cannot be victims of sexual crimes, or that men who are victims are less manly or even gay. Terry Crews, who is often seen as the very definition of a man, is one powerful counterexample to the belief that victims are somehow less masculine. A month ago, he reported that a Hollywood executive sexually assaulted him. Before I continue, I would like to note that, as a man, I likely have a different viewpoint of sexual assault than women. I want to be very clear that I do not intend to appropriate the experiences of women, but instead have us consider the value of understanding how feminism can help us tackle toxic masculinity together. Recently, We have seen many men and women come forward about their experience with sexual assault in Hollywood, Mr. Cruz being one such example. Many powerful men in Hollywood have been victimizing actors and actresses for many years because they knew that their victims would stay quiet due to the natural balance of power within the film industry. As surprising as the deeply rooted sexual abuse in Hollywood is, at its base, it is something we are all too familiar with. A powerful man taking advantage of someone beneath him on the socioeconomic ladder. We saw it just last week with Senate candidate Roy Moore. The frequency of these types of stories is a clear indictment of our society, of the way we teach boys and girls to interact starting from a young age. Young boys are constantly exposed to aggressive behavior, whether they hear their president talk about it on TV or they see it in person. By allowing this aggressive behavior to be seen as natural to men, we provide an easy excuse for abusers. Common phrases like, "boys will be boys," excuse violence as though it is in the nature of all men. Many people believe that testosterone gives men an innate tendency towards sexual violence. This is not true. A study conducted by Dr. Robert Sapolsky concluded that chemically castrating perpetrators of sexual violence does not decrease the risk of a repeat offense. So if testosterone does not cause men to be naturally aggressive, then men have the ability to control their actions. There can be no excuses, like that which one concerned mother, Judith, gave for her son. Quote, "In my generation, what these girls are going through was never considered sexual assault," end quote. Judith was defending her son for having sex with a woman too drunk to consent. She was defending her son for raping a woman because that's just what men do. That is not what men do. When we believe that men are naturally inclined to violence, we inherently believe that women are naturally inclined to be the recipients of that violence. Moving forward, men and women have to commit to changing societal beliefs as to how men are expected to behave. Doing so removes any possible excuses for men who take advantage of other people. Men must be held accountable, especially after seeing how many public figures have been secretly abusing men and women for years, knowing their victims would never speak up. We have to create a safe atmosphere for everyone to feel comfortable speaking up, because right now we live in a society that tells men that they can't be raped, and tells women that they were only raped because they dressed or acted in a certain way. We have some ways to go before we reach true equality, though we are certainly on the right path. It is important to recognize how far we have come, even as we continue to look ahead. According to the Rape and Incest National Network, sexual violence has decreased by over 60% in the past 20 years. That is truly amazing progress, but it is not enough. So how can we continue to decrease this statistic? We can support organizations like RAIN, or 1 in 6, which aid victims, spread awareness, and work to prevent sexual assault. We can speak out when we witness sexist behavior. We can stop using phrases like reverse sexism or reverse rape when talking about male victims. We must take a hard look at the way that many boys and girls are raised today, and how our society ingrains stereotypical gender roles from a young age. We must ask what behaviors are rewarded and shamed in men, and what behaviors are rewarded and shamed in women. Most importantly, we must create a culture that raises up both men and women, that values all people for who they are, not what gender they identify with. I will leave you to think about what I have shared today with a quote from President Obama. Quote, "We need to keep changing the attitude that raises our girls to be demure and our boys to be assertive, that criticizes our daughters for speaking out and our sons for shedding a tear, that punishes women for their sexuality and rewards men for theirs, that permits the routine harassment of women, whether they're walking down the street or daring to go online, that teaches men to feel threatened by the presence and success of women, that congratulates men for changing a diaper, stigmatizes full-time dads, and penalizes working moms, that values being confident, competitive, and ambitious in the workplace, unless you're a woman. I want all of our daughters and sons to see that this too is their inheritance, that it's never been just about the Benjamins, it's about the Tubmans too. And I want them to help do their part to ensure that America is a place where every single child can make of her life what she will," end quote. Thank you.